Well, hello there, friends. So today, guess what we're talking about? Look at this. If you've ever wanted to know how to operate an industrial sewing machine, this is the video for you. Wow, I needed to take a break. I was up on the roof working on my solar panels, and it got really hot up there. My eyes started dilating, my ears were closing, and I was getting really dizzy. I said, man, I got to get off of this roof. So anyway, here I am, feeling better now. So this is what I'm demonstrating today. Is my Juki. It's an Aliu 2810. This is a sewing machine that I bought, maybe 4 years ago. Not sponsored, okay? I paid for this myself. So anyway, my old machine, the one I used for almost 40 years, it was a Chandler Adler. I wore it out. So I went to a neighborhood sewing machine dealer at the time, and I went in there and asked them for the best machine that they had. And this is what they showed me. So I picked it up. This is the best thing that they had at the time. So I figured I just needed something that was going to last me maybe about another 10 years. That was 4 years ago. So I got 6 more years to go, I think, if I can last for another 6 years doing upholstery. What I got here is this machine, and it's been working out really well for me for the last 4 years. But I need to tell you, I get a lot of comments or people asking me about them wanting to buy their first sewing machine. And they see this in my videos and they think that they need to get something like this. You can go ahead and price them, and if you can, buy one, fine. But you know what? You don't have to do this. The reason I really got this one here is because it's got this really long arm. Normally, the needle would probably be about right here. But because I have this long arm, I'm able to fold up materials, and, it passes through this area here much nicer. But anyway, what I always tell them in the comments is really, all you really need is any new or used industrial sewing machine, first of all. Okay, then I would say it has reverse, which my reverse is right here. So if you have reverse, my other one was over here in my old Chandler Adler. Okay, a walking foot. So I'm going to demonstrate to you a walking foot. Okay, so the walking foot, you can see here when I give the accelerator on here, what it does is, you see how it's walking? Well, what it's doing is it's advancing the material through that area right there. So that's a walking foot. Okay, so next is a welt foot. So this welt foot right here that I have, okay, so this is welt insert for sewing welt. So I just grabbed this one here because it happened to be on my table. But what it is right there, there's a groove that's in the foot, in these two pieces right here, and there's a groove. You see that right there? I'm pulling the material, the welt through that groove. Okay, that's called a welt foot, and it makes the job a lot easier when you go to sew welt. Okay, so I always tell them, okay, any new or used industrial sewing machine has reverse, okay, has a walking foot, and has a welt foot. And I tell them, with those three things, you can sew up just about anything. So, I do have, okay, here we go. What I have here is a zipper foot. I have these 2 feet right here, really. And you can change these out. So you can take off this big welt foot and change this here for the zipper foot if you ever want to get into a bind or something where you got to sew something. But I even have videos that say how to sew a zipper without a zipper foot. So you know what, they just sit here in my box collecting dust, because you know what, I almost never change this foot right here. Like 99.9% of the time that I'm sewing, I keep this welt foot on there and I never change it. So I'm just telling you, they might try to upsell you these parts and guides and all that stuff. I don't know. You know what they do? They have guides that are attached to here that help you with your sewing or whatever. But, for 45 years, I've never used guides. I guess I just free-handed everything, but that's me. But you can get that kind of stuff. Let them upsell you. I don't think it's necessary. So those of you that follow my channel, you know that I'm real world. Okay, this thing's not polished and it's not super clean. It's not something I clean every day because you know what? I'm a working upholstery shop and I do use it every day. So, it's got a little dust and dirt on it. Okay, no more hate, please. Okay, I'm going to show you how everything here functions. First thing we're going to talk about here is threads. So what I use on this machine is a T90 thread. Okay, I usually use bonded nylon or polyester. Doesn't really matter to me. I know somebody might say, well, you have to use this kind and you have to use that kind. But you know what? The thread all really, in the end, it all ages about the same. So that's what I'm talking about right there. You see the T90 right there? This happens to be bonded polyester. So this is the type of thread that I use on the sewing machine. The thread all really, in the end, it all ages about the same. So anyway, I take my T90 size thread, which is pretty much standard for industrial sewing machines. And if I want to change the color, like go from black here from the beaver to the black to the beaver, what I do is I call it a speed thread. So this technique number 82. So what I do is I take the thread, I tie a knot around it. So I take that first knot and I grab all the threads right here with my left hand, make another knot further down. So I'm actually making two. You see that right there? I hope you can see that. But I made that second knot. Okay, now I can cut the black. So now what I do is I lift the foot. Okay, I have a knee lift. That's how it's going up and down with my right knee. So anyway, I just take the black thread, right? Just pull it through. Look at that. I just changed the thread on my sewing machine. That's what I call a speed thread. So a lot of people are confused about, and intimidated by all the thread going through the machine like this. But I never have to worry about that. You can see it right there. I never worry about the way it's threaded because I never change it. It's always there. I never take it out or change it, so never have to worry about it, right? So now we can talk about bobbins. So the bobbins are the same as the top thread. It's a T90 thread and the bottom bobbin as well as the top thread. So my machine takes these big giant U bobbins. Okay, so I still have a bunch of these little G bobbins left over from my old sewing machine. So it's taken me like 4 years to get through these. So, because that's what I was using for the longest time. I would just switch it out with these little G bobbins, but you can see the size difference. Look at that. So I couldn't find the U bobbins for a long time. And then, so I thought, okay, I can use M bobbins. So they're a little bit bigger. They're like the in-between. So the bobbin does last longer than the G's, because the G's you have to change them out pretty often because they're so small. But I don't know what your machine is going to require, but I can use any one of these on my machine. Maybe you can on yours too. So I'm making my way through these little G bobbins, and it was a viewer who wrote in comments to me, and he said, oh, I know this company that sells U bobbins. So I went and I investigated what he had told me, and sure enough, I found the website and gave them a call and ordered me a whole bunch of U bobbins. So for me, this is like a lifetime supply. I don't know. But thank you, sir. Appreciate that tip. So now would be a great time to hit that like button. So like. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So this is a handy tool that I keep by me at all times. You can see I got my own special place for it right there. So what I do with this thing is I always use it all the time for my bobbins. To change my bobbin. Just makes life easier for me. So look at that. There's that. And that's what I use the hook for there. I use the hook for this. And I use the hook for this because my fingers are too big. So that really helps out a lot. So this is the bobbin carriage. That's where the bobbin goes. Right there. You can see how it rotates like that. So what it does is there's a hook. Oh, see, my fingers are too big. Right here, you see that hook right there. So that hook, when it comes around and it meets the needle, what it does is it picks up the thread, just like that. And that's what makes the stitch. So that's where the top load bobbin is located. Some machines have a side load bobbin, which if you reach underneath the sewing machine, they're usually located right about in this area here. And you have to change out the bobbin down here. But it's really the same principle. So sometimes when you're sewing and you run out of bobbin, you have to change it. So to load a bobbin, what I do is I take the thread right here, and you see how I rotate it here. It's coming off the spool counterclockwise. Okay, so I load the bobbin into the bobbin carriage right there. Then what I do is I make sure that the bobbin thread is in that little slot right there. Close that, pull the bobbin thread. Now hold onto the top thread. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to rotate it by hand like that, and what that's going to do is it's going to pick up that bottom thread, remember? Okay, now I can just take my little tool and pull that out. Now I can close the door. Now I'm ready to sew. So when you go to sew, it's always a good practice to, when you go to start a stitch, is to hold the top and bottom thread like that. And when you start your stitch, sometimes on some machines, if you're not holding the top thread and it's loose like this, when you start your stitch, a lot of this thread is going to end up on the bottom of what you're sewing, and it turns into like a rat's nest on the bottom, and sounds horrible going through the machine and everything. So to try to avoid that, I usually just hold my threads like that. That's technique number 52, is to hold the threads when you start your stitch. So next we're going to talk about thread tension. Okay, so you see all these little dials, these little tension dials right here? Okay, then what they're going to do is if you loosen them, it's going to make your thread loose. Right now I have the knee lift up, which loosens all the tension on all of these discs right here, so you can actually pull the thread through. Okay, so these are adjusters to make your thread tighter or looser. So if you put your foot down, these tighten up. Now you can pull on your thread, and you can feel that tension there. Okay, so how you adjust the tension on your top and bottom threads. So what you do to check tension is you grab both the top thread and the bottom thread. I'm sorry, but I haven't done this like in ages. So anyway, you pull the top and bottom thread and you can feel the tension. Okay, what you really want is you want them to both have the matching tension. So there's just as much tension on the top as there is on the bottom. That's how you know you're going to end up with a really nice stitch. Okay, if the top is a lot looser than the bottom, then you're going to want to do is take these here and tighten it up. And I would just tighten it up maybe like a quarter turn, maybe like that at a time. Okay, just a quarter turn at a time. Just try it, pull on this here, see how that feels. Okay, until they match. Okay, same thing is if it's too tight. If it's too tight, then you're going to want to loosen it a quarter turn at a time. And then just check it. And what you're going to do then is sew out a sample. So remember, you grab your threads, put it under the machine, hold on to your thread, start your stitch. Okay, so I'm pressing the accelerator. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to inspect our stitch. So what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing a loose bottom thread. The bobbin thread is loose. You see how it's popping up like that? See, this is the back side here. Back side looks good. But you know what? You're not looking at the back side, right? You're looking at the top side. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to see what's going on here with the bobbin thread, bobbin carriage. Usually there'll be 2 screws right here. So I'm going to turn this here, quarter turn. And while I'm at it, I'm going to do the same to the other one too. Now let's give that a try. So let's go ahead and sew that out. So remember, holding your threads. Put the foot down. Start your stitch. Inspect it. Pull out your threads. That's what I always do. Pull them out, way out, and then cut them. Now let's take a look. You see that? That's the difference between threads that are not tensioned right and threads that are. The other way of knowing is when you go to pull them apart like this. If there's no gap, that means it's nice and tight. If you can't see daylight through it, okay, so if you can see like a lot of daylight through it, then it's probably not tight enough. That's thread tension, my friends. So now we're talking about stitch length. I have this dial right here that shows me a 7. I use 7 mostly all the time for everything, but you know, for smaller projects or for like I call them a freedom stitch now. They're not French stitch anymore. I got a big thing about that. So anyway, on my freedom stitch, okay, and what I do is I close this up to a size 5 for smaller projects like this, and it gives me a tighter stitch length. So if I do a larger project like a boat cover or an awning or something, I'll go up to 9, because then it'll make a bigger stitch right there. So usually I keep it at about 7 right there. So this is what a 5 stitch looks like. And this is what a 7 stitch looks like. And this is what a 9 stitch looks like. Now you can get a pretty good idea. That's the 5, that's the 7, and that's the 9. So this here is the knee lift right there. And what that does is when you press it with your knee like that, that's what's the action right there. You're lifting your foot. And you do that there with your knee. I'm not doing that with my knee because I have to show you. So most machines have some kind of a feature to lift the foot off of there. And that's what that lever is right there. So if you want to lock it up in the up position, and now it's in the up position. I think it must be pretty universal. So this here is if you want to make your own bobbins. So you take the thread, wrap it around here, attach it to here, and you run your machine. And when you run your machine, it winds a bobbin. I've never actually done that on this machine because I don't wind my own bobbins. You know, I showed you where I buy them pre-wound like that. So I never have to do that, but most machines will have that feature. So once you have your tension set, you never ever have to touch these. Okay, so once they're set, you just set and forget. If you keep messing with them, you're going to have a lot of trouble for yourself. So the next feature is some kind of a light. So this one here happened to come with this light. It's not something I bought for it, but it's a little LED light. The old style would come back from back here and it would come over the top like that, and it was actually a light bulb. No, now we're talking like olden days. Maybe some of you guys don't even know what a light bulb is because everything is LED now. Next on top here, provides the tension for the foot right here on this bed right here. Don't know the technical name for it, but anyway, what that does is when you put a lot of tension on there, there's going to be a lot of foot-pounds of pressure on this foot here against the machine. And what that is that's to help aid advancing the material. If you find that it's not advancing material through and it's kind of slipping a little bit, what you can do is you could take this knob here and you can tighten it up like that. I didn't actually tighten it up, I'm just demonstrating. So what it'll do is it'll make this foot here press down harder on the machine to give it something to move the material through. And of course we got an on-off switch right there. Got to have one of those. I think every machine probably has one. And now for some of the maintenance. On a lot of the older machines, you're going to have little ports everywhere. There's going to be little holes everywhere. So that's when you take your oil bottle and you put in your oil in all the little ports all over the place. This machine doesn't have them, so I'm just reenacting here. Okay, there'd be some down here. There'll be some down here. There'll be some around your bobbin carriage and underneath there. There'd even be some over here. So what you do is you're oiling your machine. That way it can keep going for many, many years. Now this machine here, you know, there's always going to be some kind of a hinge, it seems. So what you do is when you rotate the machine like that. So in the older machines, there's going to be ports everywhere that you have to oil. Oil, 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 oil everywhere. You got to oil. But look at this machine. This one here has an oil tank. It has tubes. So the tubes are going to go everything. So it's really a self-oiling machine. New technology. So I also had a viewer just recently, very recently, gave me some great advice. He says for this machine here, because of the self-oiling system, if you're using it at a low RPM like I always do all the time, it was advised to him to every once in a while, he said maybe when you're changing a bobbin, you know, take the thread out of the needle. And what he said is to run the machine and to run it at like full speed for a couple minutes. So you know what I did? I took his advice and I gave it a try. So I ran my machine. Like that, but longer. And what that does is that gets that oil pumping through the machine. Great advice, isn't it? Thanks, buddy. And now for technique number 64. What that is the accelerator pedal. So you have your accelerator pedal. Okay, what that technique is a lot of guys, when they first get on a sewing machine, they treat this like it's an accelerator pedal on a car. So what they do is they press down on it and they wonder why the needle does that. It goes so fast, right? So this is the technique. I found out I never realized it after 45 years. I was using this pedal here, not thinking too much about it, right? Because I'm just working. But what I realized is that I don't press down on the accelerator like that. What I do is when I'm sewing is I'm pumping. I'm doing a pumping action like this. So because when you're doing a pumping like this and not a pressing, what happens is you have like really good control of your needle. Look at that. I just gave you $1 million worth of advice right there. So if I forgot something, let me know in comments. I'm sure maybe I did. So until next time, we'll see ya. If you like this video, you'll really like the next one.